we finally are getting traction on the fight on graft. However, we have had some politicians say that this is not really a fight on graft, but it is targeted on some individuals and in respect to 2022 politics. So that's where we're going to start this discussion this morning. And let me start with you, Honorable Gladwell, now that you've joined us. Now, on your thoughts on whether Kenya is finally gaining traction on the fight against corruption. There was the narrative that big fish have not been arrested, and now we have CSs. We've not seen that happening. We have governors who have been arraigned in a court of law. So do you feel that finally Kenya is gaining traction?
Thank you, Mike. I want to actually express my feeling also as a Kenyan that it has been a song that was sung for a very long time by Kenyans that in Kenya the targeted people are the small fish, and finally the big fish are caught up. It is a good show. It shows that finally this country is going for the people. Actually, those are people called the mighty who might have done the wrong, so that actually they are also caught and are judged like others. Because you see, I saw a citizen who was talking and saying, when you steal chicken, you are killed. When you steal billions of money, you are just all over. So for me, I think we are on the right track. And I want to put what people are saying. Some people are being targeted, some communities being targeted, some people. I mean, I don't think, for heavenly sake, that the investigation or the investigators of this country, the justice, cannot just come to somebody without some reason. And of course, that is why they come to some community, some people, but not a community. Because I come from the community which feel targeted, or some who feel targeted, it is important to get away from it, because when people, it is only unfortunate that when they go and catch up with that person, it happens that that person comes from my community. And it is maybe a misfortune, because maybe what we got first is to get more employment and good positions. So somehow... So
from your perspective, you do not feel that it's targeted at any individual? No,
it is not targeted.
And even if not communities, a political, gathering, it's not targeted towards a political affiliation, people who are affiliated towards one political side.
I don't want to believe that way, because if in any case these people who are being arrested now, if it is political affiliation of some kind, they are affiliated to Jubilee, which is the ruling party.
All right, let me come to you, Honorable Gladys Boss-Shelley, on your thoughts on whether this is traction. And of course, you have a legal mind, so you have a legal background. You may have information in regards to how this would be done, and your thoughts as to whether this is finally traction, or is there a political angle to it?
You see, I have argued this matter, and from the time when I was myself charged, but I've never argued it I'm not arguing it from the point that a community is targeted. I'm arguing from a point of, one, that certain specific contracts were targeted, whereas there were similar contracts that are not being interrogated, yet the same standard form contract was being used.
Help us understand.
And let me explain it. I know one of the charges that has been made is that this type of contract was used instead of using this other type, which would have saved the government money, right? That is the charge. I'm trying to put it simply so that the public can understand it. Yet, the same contract that was used for Kimwarer Dam and Aror Dam is the same type of contract that was used to build the SGR railway. It was used for the southern bypass, probably for other bypasses, but the ones I know for a fact that I've checked is the southern bypass. It is also the same one that was used for the leased medical equipment
that was given to counties.
That it was given to counties, that at some point the governors had an issue with. It is actually the same contract that has been used many times over the last 30 years. So my question is, if we feel as a country, and if the Attorney General, who was in this, which was Professor Githu Muigai, thought that this is the wrong type of contract, there's nothing that could have been easier for him to do than to then advise that that contract must no longer be used because it loses the government money. But you cannot then blame an officer for signing a contract which is the standard contract that we use as a country. Okay. So for me, I want us to go more specific. The other issue is, when we look, I've also, and I have done this from the beginning, on the type of charges that are given. There are 3 charges that are standard in over 20 public officers. Not recently only, as far back as 2014, and which also affected me. One, they call it, they say, undertaking a project without prior planning, all right? But then we have no law or guidelines that tell us what prior planning is. But then there are certain steps within the laws, the procurement law, within our budgeting system that constitute prior planning. Okay. And I want to give you a very simple example. When I was charged with the purchase of the Chief Justice's house, the prior planning that can be done, a letter is written by the Chief Justice to Mudaura, Head of Public Service, asking for a house. The Head of Public Service writes to the Ministry of Justice and says, give us a cabinet memorandum. The cabinet memorandum is generated by the Ministry of Justice and taken to the cabinet. The cabinet chaired by President Kibaki then makes a decision that the house may be purchased and even puts a figure on it. That cabinet memorandum is then taken to the Treasury, to the negotiations with Parliament, and Parliament gives a budget. Then the procurement laws require that you advertise. Then the advertisement is done. As far as I'm concerned, all those steps which are required by law constitute prior planning. Yet you're charged with that. So what I've said is that in order to avoid anyone being penalized like I was unfairly, then what we should do is let us amend the law. And in fact, I am moving that in Parliament. Let's amend the law and indicate what prior planning means so that you don't say prior planning without people knowing what prior planning is. 2, there is another blanket charge that which they say is, they say office of office conferring a benefit. And when you look at the specifics of the charge is that you signed the contract. You know, you are hired as an accounting officer to sign a contract. So it cannot in itself constitute an offense. And in fact, corruption is when you use the international convention which we signed and which we have put in our laws, that corruption constitutes using, undertaking public projects with a view of getting a personal benefit. So even if you make a mistake, that is maladministration, which you can be dealt with administratively. It is not corruption. I want to see the charges linking that with a